It's time for the double stop with Brian Sword.
Welcome to the Double Stop. I'm Brian Sword. I'm changing things up a little bit this week. Got a jazz fusion guitar player for you, Frank Gambale. Even if you're not fully aware of his work, if you read guitar magazines in the 80s, you definitely know who he is because he was on the cover a lot. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little story. I had a listener reach out to me, his name is James, and he sent me an email and he asked if he could call me because he wanted to tell me a story, which at first I thought was a little strange, but I'm like, what the heck? So I sent him my number and he called me. And this is James's story because it's pretty awesome. So he's a listener to the show. He's listened to most episodes, I think. And he was at the airport and he was waiting in security, and he kind of got set aside. I think he didn't want to do the scan. He wanted to do a pat down, and there's another guy there waiting as well to do the pat down to get through security. And he was a rocker looking guy, so we started talking to him. And as soon as he started chatting, he recognized the voice. And he's like, "You're Jonathan Mover." And yes, it was Jonathan Mover. He recognized his voice because of listening to his interview on this show. And Jonathan Mover does have a very distinct voice. If you've heard my episode with him, it's on iTunes and SoundCloud if you want to check it out if you haven't. So he recognized Jonathan Mover because of the interview, so they chatted it up and they went through security and kept on going. And then, as luck would have it, he gets to his gate and there's Jonathan Mover again. So he sits down and chats, and he's got a picture with him, which he sent me. And he got a nice little chat with Jonathan Mover. But the odds of somebody meeting Jonathan Mover in the airport and recognizing the sound of his voice based on an interview is pretty awesome. So shout out to James. Thanks for letting me know the story. That's brilliant. Now, back to today's show. So Frank Gambale, he is a brilliant guitar player, jazz fusion. He writes all kinds of stuff though, rock and pop as well. But reached out to Frank because I want to try to expand out. He had a different perspective, I think, on the 80s shredder movement because he was definitely a part of it, but he was the jazz fusion guy, not really up for the Megadeth gig. We went through his entire career, life story, all the way through. Had some interesting talk about the iTunes and music streaming. And he also has a new guitar school, which I'll let him talk to you about it, an online school that you're definitely going to want to check out because this guy is a monster of a player. So let's get right to it. Here is my interview with Frank Gambale.
I am Australian originally, and born and raised in the capital, Canberra. And I moved here when I was in my early 20s, 22-ish, in the early 80s, and been here ever since in LA. Musical family, well, I was definitely inspired. I had two older brothers. I was the youngest of three boys, and my two older brothers were, gung-ho on guitar, and I just wanted to be like them. And so I picked it up, and of course, by the time they were in their early teens, they were more interested in sports and girls, and I was still too young for all that, so I just kept playing. And, my dad sort of played accordion. He was a kind of a contractor and builder, home builder, and but he loved the accordion. It's an Italian family, so you can imagine a lot of parties and dancing and accordion.
And did your brothers give you early lessons, or did you go outside of the family for that?
No lessons, man. We just, we had records and we would listen to them over and over and try to pick them up, pick up the guitar parts. I remember, hearing some great Hendrix, and going, I got to figure out how to play that. And, and I did.
No YouTube for lessons back then?
No, there was none of that. Actually, we had to work harder to get it. But in a way, it sinks in a little better, I think. perhaps. I don't know. Kids are learning a lot faster now, and there's certainly more accessibility to info,
Oh yeah.
which is a good thing.
Oh,
It's an
totally.
amazing time, really. The Internet is a marvelous and incredible resource for a lot of things.
Oh, for sure.
Mm.
Now, when did you start taking the guitar? Like you said, your brothers had moved on. When was it really serious for you?
Well, it's been serious right from the start, as far as I'm concerned. And if you spoke to my older brother, who is, in his early 60s now, he'd be the first to say that I've always been a nutcase for guitar and practicing ever since he could remember. So, yeah, it's always been serious. I love the guitar, and I still love it, and it doesn't seem to have any, I don't see any waning or lessening as I get older either. I just love the guitar. It's an incredible instrument.
When did you start playing with other players?
Well, I remember I started when I was about 6 or 7. It's a bit hazy. I don't remember if I was 6 or 7. I think I was 7. And I remember only after a couple of years, I was about 9 or 10, I was really lucky to get to jam at this really a major pop festival in Australia. It was kind of a blues, rock pop festival. And I was there early, and I got to jam with one of the first bands on. And maybe it was 1,000 people there at the time. It was still early in the day. And it was just an incredible experience. I played really well for a kid, and it just gave me the bug right there early on that wow, I could maybe do this for a living.
I'm sorry, how old were you when you did that?
I was about 9 or 10.
Wow, 9 or 10 years old, and you're
Yeah,
playing in front of 1,000 people. Oh, there's
yeah,
no
yeah.
looking back from that.
No, there's no going back after that.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I think I started playing professionally around 13. Because my oldest brother was the bass player, and he was just an incredible. He's going to be as rich as Bill Gates one of these days very soon. He's just an incredible business head, and so he was a great organizer. He would book the gigs and organize the gear. He was just great. Got us all there on time, and they used to have to smuggle me in to play. It was great. It was awesome. I was playing 6 nights a week. At 13, it was pretty awesome.
And what style of music was that?
Well, we were doing mostly covers. It started out with more of a blues and almost country feel too, because Australia at the time, country is really big in Australia, and we were doing everything from Eagles and John Mayall and Blues Breakers and God, Crosby, Stills and Nash stuff, and then we got into a little bit of Steely Dan and all kinds of fun stuff, and there were a lot of country stuff we were doing too. I can't remember. I think it was a band called the Dillars. It's a way back when. Seems like forever ago now, actually, now that you mention it.
And throughout high school then, were you playing out the whole time?
Yeah, my schoolwork suffered, as you can imagine. I would get home late from gigs, and just, I missed half the first, most mornings at school. So, but, it didn't seem to bother me much. I was more interested in playing, and I was already earning money, too, which was great. And I was buying gear, and, it was terrific.
And you said you moved to the States in your early 20s. Was that a family move, or did you make that move on your own?
No, it was just me. My older brother had his first child at 20, and so he was, his life took a bit of a turn there and became more family-oriented, or at least he needed to be a little more grounded. He would have pursued a musical career had things gone differently, but he decided to open in what became one of the biggest music stores and the first mail order store in Australia. And he went to the U.S. and came here and did a lot of market research with some of the bigger mail order companies like Daddy's Junkie Music and I think Musician's Friend and places like that at the time. And he learned a lot and, created a monster back in Australia. But while he was here, he dropped off my my audition tape to GIT, and he went to GIT in Hollywood to have a look around to see what it was like. And he came back saying, "Yeah, man, go, it's awesome. People playing guitar everywhere. There's a great energy, So, so I saved. This was about 2 years before I actually got the money together to go, and so it was great. I couldn't wait to get over here. All my favorite music was coming from here, at the time, a lot of, Chick's music and Ponte, Jean-Luc Ponte was living here at the time, and, just everybody was recording in Hollywood. It was an awesome time, so I wanted to get closer to it.
And what was your reaction when you walked into GIT?
Yeah, it was pretty much what my brother described. And, I just loved it. I was around people, like-minded people, people that were there to play and wanted to be better musicians. It was a fantastic time to be there. The school was very different in those days. It was early days of school. And there was some amazing teachers there. Some like Pat Martino was there, and so was Joe DiOrio, and these great jazz guitar players. Even Joe Pass was hanging out a lot, and some old school jazz guys, heavy cats, And so it was great just hearing them speak and play and watching them play and jamming with them. It was pretty cool.
And how do you feel that experience changed you as a player?
Well, the good thing about, even before I left, I was, after high school, I was just really living with my parents, and I was practicing 12 hours a day. I was just completely bonkers, and I had about 40 private lessons also during the week, and I was still 16. I had all these students to manage, So it's very enterprising, even at a young age, But, it actually helped me develop a lot of teaching methods that have carried on all the way through to now. And in fact, tomorrow we're starting the pre-launch for my online guitar school, which I'm very excited about. It's been coming for about 2 years, so I'm very excited about that it's finally going to get underway.
Yeah, I've heard about it, and we'll definitely get there.
I was fast forwarding there.
We skipped a couple of years.
Yeah. I forgot what your question was just then.
It was just more in terms of your evolution as a player when you stepped onto that campus. Like you talked about what a great time it was, and you said it was quite different than it is now, which I'm curious about what the differences are. But also just in terms of you're going from playing covers, and then when did you really get into the jazz side? Was it at school or was it before school? I think I just asked you like 5 questions there.
Yeah, well, musical tastes evolve over time. I don't think, I never started out wanting to play in a jazzy way. I just, after about 10 years of playing blues, and I just realized that it was great, but it wasn't all there is to know,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I just went, what is this chord? What is that chord? Oh, listen to that. It just all of a sudden I discovered another rainbow, And I just wanted to learn more about harmony and just see where it would take me. So it became this, just a knowledge and an exploration into other kinds of music. I like all kinds of music. I don't like to be pigeonholed as jazz per se. Because I've written a lot of pop tunes too. I write all kinds of music And over the next few years, I plan to release a lot of my pop music, whether it's under my name or I have someone else singing them. But it's music. Now that we have internet and we can go direct to the public, there's a lot of stuff I want to put out that has been sort of sitting there with no real place to go. But but as my taste evolved, when I discovered Chick and Mike Brecker and people like that in my early teens, I clearly knew I was going down a different path to a lot of my mates in school who were, they had Led Zeppelin, man, and I'm going, nah, Pretend Forever, man,
Yeah.
and the paths were diverging at that point, but it was great, I mean, Chick still blows me out to this day. I listen to his playing. It's an extraordinary human. And so I never thought in a million years I'd get to work with him and be part of his legacy. That was not not what I was thinking would happen,
So what did you do when you finished GIT? What was the kind of moves you wanted to make at that point?
Well, I was flat broke, as you can imagine, and fortunately for me, the school was growing really fast, and what they did was they took selective students and offered them teaching jobs as the school was growing, and I went, sure, yeah, I'll teach. It was sort of minimal, and in a way, I'm kind of glad it was minimal, so it gave me time to hustle. I knew that it wasn't enough to live on, so I had to hustle gigs, And, I was lucky enough to run into Mark Varney, who was the brother of Mike Varney, through one of my students. One of my students had sent a demo to Mark Varney, and he said, well, it's good, but it's not kind of what we're looking for. And then my student says, have you heard Frank Gambale? And he goes, no, who is he? Get him to send me a tape. And so I reluctantly did, and that's how I got my first, we'll call it a record contract. When I look at it now, it seems like a pretty simple thing, but it was my first 3-record contract. And that got the recording career started. And, I was also developing my sweep picking technique. When I discovered the Chick and Brecker, I realized that what they were playing and the guitar just didn't mix, but I wanted to make it mix. There was lines that they were playing, technical stuff that was just way beyond the guitar at the time. And I thought there must be a way to do this on the guitar. So, I set forth a beast into motion at that time, developing the sweep picking technique. And, nobody was doing it. And, it just seemed so incredibly logical to me that, if you have one note on 4 successive strings, it just didn't make sense to do any kind of alternating with the pick. It just made more sense to strum right across and separate the notes in the left hand. And by the time I got to GIT, I was already almost 10 years into sweep picking, and I clearly didn't realize what I had at the time until, I'd overcome a lot of hurdles with sweeping, technical barriers that a lot of guitar players struggle with to play fast, I found an extraordinary way to do it that was unprecedented. And when I got to the school, people going, what the hell are you doing? I was like coming from the moon rather than Australia, or outer space somewhere. And, people kept saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? And after a while, I said, look, okay, I have to write this down, So I wrote the first ever book on sweep picking called Speed Picking. And the publisher wouldn't allow me to call it sweep picking because they thought that nobody would know what it meant. There was no precedent, And so I reluctantly come to the speed picking title, well, at least it was a fair compromise. It had velocity in it, speed, and it had picking, which was also critical to the technique. So it was a pretty fair compromise. But I wanted to call it sweep picking, and so I wrote the book. And when people would ask me, "What are you doing?" I go, "Here." I just give them a photocopy of my handwritten book, and I said, "This is what I'm doing. Now let me practice."
Wow.
And then I realized that now it's become part of the guitar lexicon, and
Totally.
It's a technique that is absolutely glorious, and it will be the second course that I release on my online school. I've got these courses that are like 10 hours of video. The first one is a blues course called Spicing Up the Blues. And then the second one we release, which is being finished up now, I'm just doing the final editing, is called the Definitive Sweep Picking course. It's also about 10 hours long. And it brings forward, when I did the book, it was 1983-ish. And 1982, I was writing and published it in 83. And the video, Monster Licks and Speed Picking, came out around 86, if I remember rightly. And so there's been roughly 30 years that I haven't really written anything on the subject, and I've obviously discovered a lot of stuff, and I wanted to bring the whole thing forward to now with a lot of the developments that I've made, and so that's what I've done, and that will be coming out as the second course of release on my online school.
And where did the idea for the online school come from?
Well, I've, like I said, I had 40 students when I was 16. Teaching and books, I've had some of the best-selling guitar instructional videos ever made with Monster Licks and Speed Picking, and Chop Builder, Modes, No More Mystery. These were bestsellers when they came out. And now they're on all the file sharing sites and all that. But, and I was, for a while, I was, not only teaching at GIT, but I've, done clinics and seminars all over the world. I've done, master classes everywhere. And I was head of the guitar department at a private school here in LA that it was called LA Music Academy at the time in Pasadena. And I wrote a huge body of curriculum for that school, which was the full curriculum for the school: composition, technique, harmony theory, all these courses, which I'm planning to. I own them, so I'm going to be videotaping and offering those as courses too as soon as I get to it. But to me, one of the problems I had at LA Music Academy, and that really frustrated me, was that often, just dealing with administration, they would say, the students are saying it's a little bit hard. Can you make it easier? I dumbed it down about 3 or 4 times, and I just went, this could be stuff that you get at a community college. It doesn't need to be coming from me. I don't like to. Part of my problem is I don't like to compromise. I've never liked the word compromise either. To me, if it was a term in battle, it means that one side of your front line is being limited or weakened. And I don't like compromise in any way between two, even in a couple. Because it means that both sides don't get what they want. I've always thought, okay, I'll do it your way, and we'll go with that, and then later we'll do it my way, and that way we both get exactly what we want, And so, that was the case for the course. I thought, I just don't want to, I want to put it out exactly as I perceived it, And I want my whole desire is to elevate the standard, not to keep dumbing it down, you know. So I thought, well, okay. It was my wife's idea. She says, "Why don't you do an online school?" I thought, that's a brilliant idea because universities are going that way. Everything's going to be online eventually. They'll all be plugged into the machine, and that'll be the human race. From nobody will move. Everything will be delivered, and So it seems to be the smart way to go. That way, I can deliver the information in video form, streaming that exactly the way I want to present it, without being subjected to having to do it one way or another. I want to do it exactly the way I wanted to present it, and I think it's going to be a really, really great website for info and guitar.
And is it all for advanced students, or do you do some stuff for...
No, I mean, the blues course starts right from the beginning. It's 10 hours of blues, and it's called Spicing Up the Blues, and it starts real basic. I mean, what is a minor pentatonic? And but right away it gets into how to make music out of this stuff, I'm a believer of showing people how to fish rather than just feeding them. There's a lot of licks and stuff, but I like to get at why is that lick being played? Why are these notes? Why? Get underneath it. And so once you understand, it's a whole other different place to be. The comprehension level is far greater. So so it starts right at the beginning, and it ends up at super blues god at the other end.
When's that go live?
Well, tomorrow apparently is the pre-launch start. So within it's revving up. So I think it'll be about a week or two of pre-launch stuff, and then we go live.
Oh, brilliant! Now,
so I'm very excited.
When you talk about the sweep picking and developing that, and then you saw what it became in the 80s, especially in the shrapnel movement, how'd you feel about that?
Well, what's really interesting is my partner in this online school went around gathering testimonials from all corners of the guitar community, and it staggers me that I've been able to reach, even death metal guys all the way to country pickers and rock. Just sweep has become this, this thing that's larger than life, and everybody does it a bit, or some or a lot, but, it's helped a lot of people. It was, it helped people get past some of the physical limitations that alternate picking has. And so, people have taken it and they've run with it in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of genres of music. And I think that's awesome. And that's, the testimonials for my online school will, it'll make your eyes pop, who's saying what, it just amazes me.
Now, how did you hook up with Chick Corea?
I can draw a direct line pretty much from GIT to Chick Corea because the course of events, once I started teaching there, Jeff Berlin, bass player, was one of the instructors there, and Scott Henderson was there a lot too, great guitar player, and those guys played together a lot, and they had a band, and then Scott Henderson did an audition for Jean-Luc Ponty and started playing with Jean-Luc. So there was a gap in Jeff Berlin's group, so I started playing with Jeff, and I did about 2 years in his group, and I ended up playing on his second record, which was the first record that I played in L.A. That was the first record I did in L.A. And it would just so happen that he picked Mad Hatter Studios, which at the time was Chick Corea's studio, right in the Los Feliz area. And so when we went to record there, I was, my jaw hit the ground, Chick Bossendorfer pianos. Most of my favorite albums were recorded in that very room. So you can imagine it was like, ground zero for me. I was very excited just to be in that very room in the same studio. And I recognized it from studio pictures on the album covers. And there was, original artwork from some of the, like Romantic Warriors artwork was on the wall, the original drawing. So I was lucky. One day I was packing my gear in the car, and, the studio was on the second level. The ground floor was all Chick's office and management, and I was packing my gear, and I saw a woman come out of the office. I didn't know who she was, but it looks like she was leaving for the day. And I walked over and I said, "Look, you don't know me, but, I'm a huge fan of Chick Corea, and I'm a guitar player, and if Chick ever needs a guitar player, here's my card. You got to give me a call." It was pretty brazen, but that, I just couldn't miss that opportunity. And she took the card and she looked at it and she said, "Frank Gambale, hang on, my husband's played with you, and he says you're really good."
Oh, really?
And I said, "Wow, that's great. Who's your husband?" And it was, I don't know if you know him, but Tommy Brechtline is a great drummer who I saw play and perform in Australia with Chick when he was 21. Great drummer, prodigy, has been on a number of Chick's records. And then he went on to play with Robin Ford and Eric Johnson and a few other great artists too. Now he's with Kenny Loggins, I think. But, and so Evelyn Brechtline, the woman I met, she was Chick's manager's personal secretary, and she still works for Chick after all these years, So, literally 3 or 4 months after that, I got a call for an audition for Chick and the Electric Band. So, and the rest is history, as they say.
And in terms of that audition, what was it like to audition for one of your heroes?
Well, before that, I had auditioned in the very same room that I auditioned for Chick. I had auditioned for Jean-Luc Ponty, who was another one of my heroes too. And I got the gig, and we toured for about a month and a half around the U.S., and it was awesome. It was my first taste of touring on a real high-level professional touring act. And Jean-Luc was really at the height of his career. We were playing to huge audiences, and but the tour was short. And at the end of it, Jean-Luc was between record contracts, and he was already living in Beverly Hills. He was doing all right, and I'm a student, coming out of teaching, and I said, well. He says, "I don't have anything for about a year." And I said, "Well, great, fabulous. If there's, of course, I'd love to work with you more, Jean-Luc. But let me know when you got something going." And, about 2 months after that, I got the call for Chick's band, and I thought, well, I might as well do that audition too, And so I ended up in Chick's band after that. So it was great. The audition experience was amazing. I mean, I'd worked with, Tom Brechtline was playing the drums, and I knew Tommy well, because Breckle was living in New York at the time, and Patitucci I'd worked with also before around town, around L.A., so the only unknown was Chick. And, of course, big hero, but I thought to myself, this is something I want very badly, and I'm going to play like it's my last performance on Earth. And I was very prepared, and I was very ready. So I think that I only played one tune, which was the spectacular thing, and Chick jumps off the keyboard, and he comes over and he shakes my hand, and he says, "Well, your amp will be pointing across the stage like this." And I'm thinking to myself, do I already have this gig? Wow. And Patitucci had to remind Chick, "Hey, listen, man, we've got a couple more guys to audition still, But I could see that Chick had already made his mind up. And one of, I think, Patitucci's brother-in-law or one of these was one of the other guys to audition, so he had a little bit of an ulterior motive for suggesting someone else had to audition still.
Otherwise, you're just like giving him the dirty look.
Yeah. Oh, come on, John. I got the gig, man. Come on. Yeah. But it was great, you know. And as I said before, I'm delighted. That whole experience of the Electric Band from '86 until '92 was absolutely, you know, as the high life as far as I'm concerned for a musician. You know, just touring all over the world, everywhere, playing lots of concerts, every major venue in the world, and making great records, won a Grammy, and, you know, it was incredible. And I think we have some more dates coming up. You know, even though we did a bit of a reunion in 2002 until 2005, we did more, and now, I got a call the other day. I don't know if it's confirmed yet, but I think we got more shows for next year.
Oh, that's great. And is that the Electric Band, or is that Return to Forever? 'Cause
Yeah.
you played with them too,
No,
right, during the reunion?
Yeah, I did that too, but it's it's for the Electric Band.
Great. Now,
The original lineup too, with Patitucci on bass.
oh, brilliant. And that was an interesting time for that whole era of the late 80s, early 90s, you know, with the guitar magazines, and you were on the cover many times. But it was interesting because the other guys on the guitars on the covers were the ones who did the shrapnel shredders, and then, you know, they get hired by Megadeth, or they get hired by Poison or David Lee Roth or other stuff. And you were also part of that group, but you were doing a very different thing.
I was the token jazz fusion guy. It's funny, you know, Guitar Player magazine had fusion as a reader's poll category for only 2 years, and I won it for both years. And then they lumped it back into jazz, you know. And I mean, they have flat pick, they have finger picking, they have folk guitar, they have a million subcategories of guitar. Yet they lump anybody that's kind of, you know, plays a sharp 9 chord with a flat 5, and it's jazz. You know, let's put them all over there. So that was always an odd thing to me. But the 2 years we did have a fusion category, I won it.
And so you're playing with Chick Corea's Electric Band, but you're also doing other projects that whole time, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, you know, I as much as I love working with Chick and playing his music, ultimately I have my own expression and the things I want to say musically and as a guitar player. So I was actively doing my own albums, you know, roughly 20 solo albums now, you know, a lot of albums, a lot of music, and you know, it's ongoing. There's more to come, you know. I've been putting a lot of energy into this online school, and now that it's about to launch, I'm really looking forward to getting back to some music projects that are long overdue.
In the 90s, when the musical climate changed for rock and for the guitar god side of things, how did that affect you in the jazz and fusion world?
Well, you know, we are this small satellite sliver of the market in the first place. So, you know, we went from like 0.5% of the market to 3/8, or 2/8, or whatever. You know,
yeah.
It didn't really matter too much. I was more saddened by the decline of the popularity of guitar music, or at least, guitar playing in a virtuosic way.
Mm-hmm.
That whole shred, whatever it was out of Seattle,
the grunge thing. Yeah.
I mean, a guy hacking away with 2 strings on the guitar out of tune, and that was hip, It was like the punk movement too, a little bit, but even worse. It was anti-musical, anti-establishment, anti-anything, everything. And so that became hip, and then so all the shreddy guys and the virtuoso guitar players were going, huh? How, what? And, I don't think the guitar world's really recovered that much since all that. I mean, musical instrument sales are not where they used to be. They're on a slight upswing again now. Computers have changed things, It's a different paradigm. We're all finding our way in this new paradigm. I look at music videos and I don't see anybody even playing an instrument. I have a friend who has a production house here in LA. He does TV shows. He's won an Emmy. He's an old friend of mine from Australia. I used to give him guitar lessons and music lessons. He's a bass player, actually. But, he's a production house here. He's the only one playing an instrument to make music. The rest of the guys are all just cutting and pasting samples. Nobody plays an instrument. Yet they're working as music production houses for television shows, So that's a different state of affairs, But nothing will ever replace, in my mind, the sound of a string plucked or a guitar amp. I'm old school, I guess, and it's a bit of a changing of the guard to some degree. But I'll keep doing what I'm doing because I love what I do.
Have you ever explored soundtracks and that kind of music production?
I've thought about it, but I haven't actually actively pursued it. I would love to give it a try one day. I kind of like the idea of writing songs that I can place in movies rather than doing the actual scores that get chopped to pieces. And, you might write this incredible piece of music, and I'm too attached to music. I find it hard for it to be background. For me, music is a foreground experience. An eyes closed, it's not a visual experience. Music has really become a video business these days. But it's really an oral entertainment, So I want to be in the foreground and submerge myself in music and close my eyes and experience it, and not have, I think video is great too. I've become so good at video editing lately that in Final Cut Pro that I can't wait to experiment with video editing for music video. For song videos, So I want to use that skill that I've gained editing video from the online school into some nice and interesting creative projects from some of my songs.
I spoke to Jennifer Batten recently, and that's something she's gotten really heavily into as well.
Yeah. It's fun. It pulls together a lot of creative juices,
Oh, yeah.
But ultimately, to me, the quality of the song is always what's important, And it really doesn't matter how it's produced, I think still in this world we still have mostly guitar players and keyboard players writing the majority of the music. They're using those two instruments still as the major proponent, You can cut and paste all day long, but some of the music I hear sometimes makes me laugh so hard because it's just a sample that doesn't fit with something else. It just sounds, I don't know, it's kind of become a source of comedy to me. But it's being played on the radio and I'm hearing it and I'm going, okay, I wonder who the producer was, couldn't really tell that was completely out of tune or in the wrong key to the song, but it doesn't seem to matter much anymore, It matters to me, but it doesn't matter to the general public, it seems. So it's an interesting place to be as a musician that's trained and skilled and spent my whole life honing my craft, When I hear cut and paste music, it makes me scratch my head and wonder. While I can, I'm always going to create music to the highest level without compromising my ability. So my records are always going to be the best I can make them, with the skills and knowledge and craft I've learned over my whole life, So, and there'll always be a market for it. There'll always be, I have my fans, I have my loyal fans, and I love there's aspects of the internet that to me is so great these days. I just love the whole social media thing because I'm reaching directly to my fans now. There's no filter, nobody in the middle. It is awesome. It is awesome. It's a great time to be a musician. And especially one that's got an established fan base. I would find it really hard to start now. But, everybody's got to start somewhere. And for the new artists coming up, it's all possible. It just takes a long time to build a good audience, And I'm fortunate enough to have been touring around the world for 30 years, all over the map, and being in front of a lot of people. So the fan base is there, and it's truly international, and I can reach them directly through YouTube channels and my website and my school and Facebook and all that stuff. It's wonderful.
And for releasing music at this point, do you need a label at all? Like, you can put it on iTunes, you can record it and have it on iTunes the next day. If you want to make CDs, you could have it in Amazon the next, very quickly.
Yeah, but I'm getting very disillusioned with iTunes. iTunes were great while they were selling MP3s, but now they've just become another Napster or Rhapsody or all those what I consider abominable internet radio, the subscription services that don't pay the musicians anything. So, I think the future, I have some friends that are working on some technologies. I think the way forward for musicians is that we have to become sole source avenues for our music. My giving, my song to iTunes anymore is a lot less appealing since they did this match thing. Before it was, you would get your 70 cents for a download. Now you get 0.00006 cents, just like all the other utterly pointless and useless subscription services. And I just mean that from an artist perspective. So, to me, the way forward for musicians is to make our music solely available through our own servers and our own controlled. And I have a friend who's working on a technology that is absolutely awesome. And as soon as it's available, I'm going to be one of the first to use it. Is that he's creating this new delivery system for music and everything for any kind of intellectual property, is that the consumer only gets the player part, and the owner of the intellectual property has a file that doesn't make any sense or doesn't play on anything. So, and each copy that goes out will only be matched to a certain a particular device on the other end, and they have to purchase the device and purchase the other half of the and it'll probably be cracked in 5 years or less. But I just love the idea that if someone wants a Frank Gambale song, a new song, the only place you can get it is from a Frank Gambale source, right? And you have to have your own fan base to do that. But I think that's the way forward, because everybody has been milking the artists to death for too long. It's why every artist that reaches some sort of level of success usually starts their own label. It's obvious why. It's because the lion's share always goes to the record companies. To me, it was like the record shops, too. I used to marvel at the record shops. You know, they didn't care what was selling on their shelves as long as something was selling. They don't care which artist it is, could give a darn, right?
No.
But, you know, the record shop on a CD was making like $8. The artist who created the whole thing in the first place would make maybe $1, you know, and that was maybe a year and a half later when the residuals would trickle down. It's completely wrong. You know?
Oh, totally.
Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what it is with live streaming is that, I mean, with streaming music is that it's still the labels that are getting the money. It doesn't make it to the artist, but the labels are making off like bandits.
It's pathetic. It's the worst ever scenario. It's gone from bad to unbelievably worse with the streaming rate. Now, the consumers love it because, and I can dig that, you know, from a consumer point of view, they're going, oh, man, I was at a friend's house, you know, I don't have these Rhapsody service, but, you know, he's got Wi-Fi in his house, and he didn't know who I was. I just met him, and he says, oh, you're a musician. I hear you're a musician. Yeah, what's your name? Puts it in. 2 seconds later, he had one of my songs playing on his stereo. And I thought, shit, that's amazing. That's fast. You know, that kind of access is mind-boggling and awesome. But I would like to see the artists benefit from it because I never put the cart before the horse. It's the artists that are creating the content, and they're the ones being screwed the most. It's got to change. It can't continue this way. You know, I would love to see you musicians be more united, you know. Problem is, you got new artists coming up going, I just want to be heard, man, you know. And so we're all shooting each other in the foot, and it's just a debacle.
Well, anytime there's something that involves passion, those people are ripe to be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Young.
Because if they're making the music and they're passionate about it, they don't care. They want it to be heard. They're thrilled. If somebody listens, they're thrilled. And that goes along with people who enter the film business because they often have to volunteer for a year before anybody will pay them because they're passionate and they know that they can be taken advantage of. There's no, you know, it goes in many different businesses and arts.
It's like being an intern forever.
Yeah. And with
never
music,
actually getting the job or paid. You just get to sort of experience it, but you go, oh, well, hang on.
Exactly.
I gotta eat.
Which means,
have a
you know,
over my head.
Yeah. And a company just wants free labor. And you talk about the music, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you use the word access. That's what, you know, I think that's the mindset of people, especially young people right now, is they'd rather just pay $10 and have access to everything than own anything.
Yeah.
You know, and where does that leave you?
Yeah, well, you know, I took all my music, all my catalog off those streaming radio services, and there's only one record of my whole catalog that I don't control, and that was the first album on Steve Vai's label called Favored Nations, and the album is called Coming to Your Senses. Now, I don't control that one, so that's the only one you can find on the streaming services. So, but that's good. You know, if people hear it, okay, I'll leave one record up there. And if people dig it and they want more, they got to go somewhere else to get it because they're not going to get it on the streaming services. And, you know, I may be shooting myself in the foot too, but, you know, and I'm doing this on principle. I did this a long time ago. It's probably at least a year ago, and I put it on my Facebook page, and I told people what the reality was, and people were so shocked that the artists were getting so little on these services, and many of my fans were subscribers, and they went, I'm canceling my subscription tomorrow, you know. And I think, well, if I can make a small dent, great, you know, it's not going to change anything, but, you know, it's nuts out there, Someone's got to take a stand, so I'm taking a stand against the. I'm not against the concept of it. I love the service that they're providing. I'm completely for it. I just don't think the artists are being paid fairly. 0.00006 of a cent is ridiculous.
And you can't say the money's not there either.
Yeah, no, it's not even a real number. Give us a flippin' penny, Don't give us this 0.0000000 bullshit, So, in the old days on the radio, if you get played on broadcast radio, you get 10 cents a spin, and that adds up fast, But not this ridiculous number that these companies are giving their artists, I mean, time and time again, you get these artists saying, but I played 5 million times, and they gave me $600, That's just not right.
Well, as we finish up, let's go back to the school quickly, and where can people find it?
It's Gambale Online Guitar School.com, and it's launching very shortly. And then I can finally get back to music as well, and I'll be working very hard to get my next, I don't know if you heard my current latest record called Soul Mine. Working on a second Soul Mine record. So I'm very excited about that. Got lots of songs sitting there, about 3/4 done. So I think I've got enough material for another record soon too. So very, very anxious to get that done.
And it sounds like you have some more live dates coming up with Chick too. So
yeah, and I've got my own. I've got my own touring coming up too.
Okay.
A West Coast tour brewing in October, and also I'm waiting for confirmation, but dates in Mexico and Costa Rica, and probably Europe in November as well. So yeah, keeping active, keeping busy. I love to play, and that's it for now.
And that was Frank Gambale. I hope you enjoyed it. This interview was recorded probably a couple of weeks ago, so it would sound like his guitar school is probably doing this open for beta testing or like some kind of soft launch. So definitely look for it. I know he's put a ton of work into it, so it's probably definitely worth checking out for you guitar players out there. Next week, I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to have Barry Sparks on the show. He's got a brand new band, Ride on Mars, and we're going to talk about his career, and we're going to talk about some of the great guitar players he's played with, because man, he's played with some monsters. And remember, if you want to check out past episodes, including the Jonathan Mover episode I talked about at the beginning of the show, you can go to iTunes, you can go to SoundCloud. I got my website at thedoubletop.com. It's kind of under construction right now because there's a WordPress update and my theme died. So look for that to kind of get back into shape over the next couple of weeks. But I will keep on cranking out shows. Until next week, I'm Brian Sword. Thanks for listening to The Double Stop.